So if we turn to the agenda, can we start with the introductions? I'm Nicola Roberts and I'm the chair. So can I ask everybody to introduce themselves as they appear on the list? Good afternoon, John Griffith, Talabolion.
Pnawn da, Glenn Haynes, Caergybi.
Thank you. And the next member? Good afternoon, Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes and Nisguppy. And the next member? I ask the next member to introduce themselves. You might be on mute. Yes, apologies for that. Ken Hughes, Talabolion. Thank you, Councillor Ken Hughes. And the next member? I think it should be Councillor Vaughan Hughes, but he has apologised. So can we go straight on to the next member? Good afternoon, Councillor Richard Jones, to Kelly Ward and Vice Chair of Planning. Thank you. And the next member? Good afternoon, Eric Wyn Jones, Councillor for Bro Rhosir. Thank you. And the next member? Good afternoon, David Roberts, Bro Rhosir. And the next member? Good afternoon, Ieuan Williams, Councillor for Lligwy Ward. And unfortunately, I have to apologise. I'll have to leave at 2 p.m. Thank you. Councillor Robin Williams, the last name on the list, has also apologised. So we'll move on to the officers, if they could introduce themselves. Good afternoon, I'm Robin Jones and I'm the legal officer. And the next officer. Good afternoon, Dewi Jones, Chief Planning Officer. Thank you. And the next officer. Good afternoon, Rhys Jones, Planning Development Officer, Manager. Good afternoon, John Williams, Planning Officer. And the next member, Officer. Good afternoon, Colette Redfern, Planning Officer. And the next. Good afternoon, Ivan Hughes, Highways Officer. Thank you. So we've covered all the officers. I can also see that the planning portfolio holder is here, Councillor Richard Dew. Would you like to introduce yourself? Good afternoon, Richard Dew, planning portfolio holder. We also have some local members present. Can I ask you to quickly introduce yourselves, and we'll start with Councillor Aled Morris-Jones. Good afternoon, Aled Morris-Jones representing Twrcelyn Ward. Thank you, and Councillor Alan Roberts. Good afternoon, Alan Roberts, Councillor for the Ceiriol Ward. I can also see that the leader is present, Councillor Llunos Medi. Good afternoon, I'm Llunos Medi representing Canolbarth Môn. Are there any other officers or members who I've left out? Okay, so we'll move on with the agenda. Are there any further apologies? I think I have apologised on behalf of Councillors Vaughan Hughes and Robin Williams. Are there any other apologies? No? So we'll move on to declarations of interest. Yes, may I declare an interest in 11.1? Bodlawen Bryn-Shenkin, I'm related to the applicant. Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Good afternoon. Yes, Dewi Jones. I declare an interest in item 11.2, application for Wylfa Benllech Road, or Bangor Road Benllech. I'll be leaving the meeting for that item. Any other declarations of interest? No, thank you. So we'll turn to the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of November. Will anybody propose that they are correct? Yes, I propose. Thank you, Councillor Richard Owen Jones. And I think that Councillor John Griffiths has his hand up to second the proposal. Thank you. Any other proposals, or is everybody happy to accept the minutes? So will you all please show? Okay, so the minutes have been approved. So there weren't any site visits last month. We don't have any public speakers. No deferred applications, so we'll go straight on to application 7.1, which is Neuadd Cemmaes. Can I bring the officer in first, please? Yes, thank you. As you can see, at the last meeting, the committee decided to approve this application contrary to the officer's recommendation. So in accordance with the arrangements, the final decision was deferred and it will be reconsidered today. And the reason for that is so that you can receive a further report from the officers responding to the committee's reasons for permitting the application. The report does that, and having weighed up the issues, the officer's recommendation continues to be one of refusal based on lack of compliance to retail policies and the detrimental effect on the character and appearance of the AONB. Thank you. Thank you. I understand that the local member, Councillor Aled Morris-Jones, wants to speak on this application. Is that correct? Yes, Chair, if I may. So can I ask you to come in now, Councillor Jones? Thank you. In the previous committee, the Planning Committee unanimously supported this application. This small hut, and I emphasise small hut, it is small. It won't have any effect at all on the local environment. It certainly won't. This hut to sell milk will ensure a local provision of milk. There is a local demand for this service. This application will create an additional job on the family farm. This is what sustainability means. Local sustainability. So very respectfully, can I ask you to stick to the decision that you made last month and to support this application? Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, so we've heard from one of the local members. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this application? Councillor Eric Wyn-Jones. Yes, thank you, Chair. I didn't speak during the last meeting because I felt that a lot had already been said then, but I am going to speak today. During the pandemic, and we're still in the middle of the pandemic, a lot of wooden huts have been erected across the island. Examples like a garden hut, Wendy House for the children, a gym palace for the women, and man caves for men. They have been a haven for many people, which doesn't mean that the milk hut in Nantes is any different to these. A petition of over 3,000 people support this application and over 150 letters have been received, and it tells you which way the wind blows today. Listen to the people and you'll have the right answer and decision. There is strength in numbers. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that speech. Can I ask Councillor Ken Hughes to come in, please? Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to propose the recommendation of approving the application contrary to the officer's recommendation. Councillor Eric Wyn-Jones wants to come in. I'm more than happy to second the proposal to approve the application. Does the officer need further details on the proposal that's just been made? Yes, thank you. If the committee wants to approve the application, I would appreciate a quick discussion about planning conditions when that's suitable. Yes, I accept, because a condition was proposed by the last committee linked to this application. So Am I correct? Yes, I agree. So the proposal in front of us is that we approve the application contrary to the officer's recommendation, but that powers are delegated to the chair and vice chair to decide on conditions to be imposed on this application with the planning officer. Am I correct? I thought that the condition was that any permission granted would limit the use of the hut to the applicant only. Can I ask the officer to come in just to explain that so that we are clear? Yes, thank you. If the committee wishes to approve this application, I think we need to agree if you want to impose conditions on the permission. That would be to control the development and to reflect your reasons for approving from the discussions that have been held previously and again today. Just to address what I interpret as the committee's justification, I think we need conditions that deal with matters such as a personal approval for the applicant. You need some sort of condition controlling the produce that would be sold on the site to ensure this link with the farm and the diversification on the farm. And I think it would be beneficial if we had conditions to mitigate the visual impact of the development to some degree, and to look at conditions dealing with landscaping, managing external lighting on the site and the building itself. So if you agree as a committee that these sorts of conditions are required, what I would ask is that you delegate the right for us as officers to impose these conditions on the permission. And as has already been stated, we do that in consultation with the chair and the vice chair. Thank you. Okay, now that's been explained, are the proposer and seconder happy for the proposal to be voted on as you have stated it, but that officers should be given the right to decide on appropriate conditions to be imposed on the approval? Well, I think a lot of additional conditions have been mentioned there that we didn't discuss at the last committee. I thought that we should be deciding on the application in front of us, but I stand to be corrected by the officer. I think what's in front of us is the application as it stands, but the discussion we had in the last committee is that we need to safeguard what's already on the site, and that the permission should be given to the person running the business now, and that it shouldn't stay forever on the land. It shouldn't be attached to the land. So we need to look at the conditions to ensure that we have the right conditions to ensure that the current business in its present form succeeds. And that's what the officer wants us to discuss, so that we safeguard the future of the business in its current form. Am I correct? Yes, and I think to reflect the committee's own reasons for approving this development, there has been mention of supporting a local family so that it's sustainable. It is diversification linked to a farm. So as an officer, what I want to raise is that the committee should consider if that is the justification for approving in this case. Then as a committee, I suggest that you need to consider if you need those sorts of conditions to ensure that those matters prevail. So does the original proposal reflect what the officer has said? I think it's only fair that Councillor Kenneth Hughes and Derek Wyn-Jones can say if they want to continue with that proposal. Well, yes, I agree with the officer then. Okay, so the proposal we have is contrary to the officer's recommendation, but it does accept the conditions suggested by the officer. Yes, just that the planning officer remembers that this is a business. We don't want to close businesses. It's important that this business is successful. You know, at the end of the day, the conditions and the approval should be fair for everybody and not just the planning officers. Well, as chair and the vice chair will also see the conditions proposed by officers. So I'll make sure that your opinion as a committee is reflected as well. So is there another proposal? Does anybody want to make another proposal or an amendment? If not, I'll take a vote on this proposal, which is to approve this planning application. So, Councillor John Griffiths, are you in favour of approving the application? Yes, I'm in favour of approving with conditions. Councillor Glyn Haynes.
Yeah, in favour with conditions.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. Yes, I agree, and I agree with the conditions. Councillor Richard Owen-Jones. Yes, I'm in favour with the conditions. Councillor David Roberts. In favour with the conditions. And Councillor Ian Williams. Yes, in favour with the conditions. Thank you. So that application has been approved. And we'll be having a further discussion about the conditions with officers. Thank you. So moving on with the agenda and on to application 11.1. So an application for a lawful development certificate for the existing use of the dwelling approved under 37C 53A/DA in breach of its planning permission and its pre-commencement under the conditions at Bodlawen, Llanidam, Bryn Shenkin. Can I bring the officer in, please? Yes, I'll be leaving the meeting now. Okay, thank you, Councillor David Roberts. So can I bring the officer in, please? Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. The reason for reporting to the committee is because the applicant is related to the local member, David Roberts. So in terms of the key issues, is the evidence submitted as part of the application sufficient and that the burden of proof has been discharged? In these sorts of cases, planning policies aren't relevant. So the application should be based on the evidence submitted. So the main planning considerations of this application are: outline planning permission was given on the 12th of May 1989 for the erection of a dwelling with conditions. Following that, reserved matters permission was given on the 22nd of August 1990, again with conditions attached. Having assessed the planning history, it appears that information wasn't submitted to the local planning authority to release these conditions or discharge them. Also, it is judged that the dwelling hasn't been built in accordance with the planning and the conditions. It is conditions 1, 2, 3, 7 and 8 have been breached for a period of over 10 years continuously, and as a result the applicants are entitled to a certificate because the conditions can no longer be enforced after 10 years. The evidence submitted just suggests that the work had started on the 1st of November 1990 and that the property was first occupied on the 9th of October 2000. the dwelling built is different to what was approved in terms of its position, size and design. The legal department has been consulted and has come to the conclusion that the conditions have been breached for over 10 years. Subsection 2 in the Town and Country Planning Act says that planning conditions can't be enforced after 10 years. Subsection 3 of the same Act also says that enforcement action cannot be taken at the end of a 10-year period from the date of a breach. So, in conclusion, it appears on the balance of probabilities that the development was not carried out in compliance with the permission and certain conditions. As the development was completed some 20 years ago, it means that no enforcement action could be taken in respect of the conditions. As such, the applicant is entitled to a certificate that the development is lawful. So the recommendation is to approve the application for a certificate of lawfulness of existing use and development. Thank you. Thank you. Do members of the committee have any questions on this application? If not, is anybody willing to make a proposal? Yes, Councillor Eric Wynne-Jones. Yes. I'm going to propose the recommendation of permitting. Thank you. So, proposed by Councillor Eric Wynne-Jones. Is anybody willing to second that proposal? I'm willing to second. So, is there another proposal or an amendment? If not, we'll take a vote to permit this application. Councillor John Griffiths, in favour or against the recommendation? In favour. Thank you. Councillor Glyn Haynes.
In favour.
Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. In favour. Thank you. Councillor Ken Hughes. In favour. Thank you. Councillor Eric Wynne-Jones has proposed, so straight on to Councillor Richard Owen-Jones. In favour. Thank you. Councillor David Roberts has declared an interest and left the meeting, so on to Councillor Ian Williams. In favour. Thank you. So that application has also been approved. So we'll move on to 11.2. Full application for the conversion of the outbuilding into a holiday letting unit together with alterations and extensions thereto at Wilfa, Bangor Road, Benllach. The local member, Councillor Margaret Roberts, has got in touch. She apologises that she can't attend the meeting today. She had another commitment, but she has asked if it would be possible for us to have a site visit. She intends to address the committee at the next meeting if possible. She says that there is local support to this application and therefore she would like you as a committee to visit the site so you can see it for yourselves. Is anybody willing to accept Councillor Margaret Roberts' proposal and to propose a site visit? Yes, I'm happy to propose. Thank you. Councillor Richard Owen-Jones has proposed a site visit and I think Councillor John Griffiths has seconded. Thank you. So we'll go on to a vote if that's okay. So in favour or against the site visit? Councillor Glyn Haynes.
Yes, site visit.
Thank you. Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. I agree. Thank you. Councillor Ken Hughes. In favour. Thank you. Councillor Eric Wynne-Jones. In favour. Councillor David Roberts. Apologies. Has anybody asked Councillor David Roberts to come back after he declared an interest in the last item? I'm very sorry. I should have checked that before starting this application. Councillor David Roberts, did you hear the discussion? We'll give him 2 minutes to catch up. Councillor David Roberts, apologies, you're back now, are you? So I'll just repeat. So application 11.2, Wilfa, Bangor Road, Benllach. Councillor Margaret Murray Roberts has asked for a site visit. Councillor Richard Owen-Jones has proposed a site visit and Councillor John Griffiths has seconded. So are you also in favour or against a site visit, Councillor Roberts? I'm in favour. Thank you, Councillor Ian Williams.
Are
you on mute? Are you in favour or against the site visit? In favour. I don't think I was on mute. Okay, so we'll be having a site visit to Benllach next month. So moving on with the agenda to item 11.3. Full application for the installation of a septic tank with soakaway and on land adjacent to Parciau Llanddaniel. Can I bring the officer in first of all? Thank you. This application is being reported to the committee because the applicants were former planning officers, and we think it is wise to present this application to the committee to decide on it. It's an application to install a septic tank and a soakaway and pipework. There wasn't any objection to the application locally or from the statutory consultees, and apart from visual impacts whilst the work would be undertaken, there won't be any long-term visual impacts. So as a result, we don't think that there will be any detrimental effect on the amenities of local residents. It complies with planning policies and the recommendation is to approve. So do members of the committee have any questions for the officer? If not, does anybody want to make a proposal? Yes, I'm happy to propose. Thank you. Councillor Ken Hughes has proposed and seconded by Councillor Richard Owen-Jones. Am I correct? Okay. So the recommendation is to permit. So we'll move on to the vote. Councillor John Griffith, in favour or against? In favour of approval. Thank you, Councillor Glyn Haynes.
In favour.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. Agree. Thank you, Councillor Eric Wyn-Jones. In favour of approving. Councillor David Roberts. In favour. Councillor Ian Williams. In favour. Thank you, everybody. So we'll move on now to application 11.4. Minor amendments to scheme previously approved under planning permission FPL 2020-73 so as to amend the annexes, windows and to install solar panels at Parciau Llanddaniel. Can I bring the officer in again? Yes, thank you. As with the previous application, it's the same applicant, so it's the same reason for reporting to the committee. This is an application for minor amendments to planning permission given last year for an extension, and it includes installing solar panels on part of the roof, removing one window from one elevation and changing the size of another window on the front elevation. The solar panels won't be any higher than 35 millimetres above the roof structure, and the windows won't have an impact on the amenities of neighbours or the local area. So once again, the recommendation is to approve with conditions. Thank you. Do members of the committee have any questions? If not, is there a proposal? Yes, I'm happy to propose. Thank you, Councillor Eric Wyn-Jones. Is there a seconder? Yes, I'm happy to second. Thank you, Councillor David Roberts. Any other proposals or an amendment? If not, we'll move on to the vote, which is to permit this application. Councillor John Griffiths, in favour or against? Yes, in favour of approving. Councillor Glyn Haynes.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. In favour. Thank you. Councillor Ken Hughes. Yes, in favour. Councillor Richard Owen-Jones. In favour. And Councillor Ian Williams. In favour. Thank you. So that application has also been approved. Thank you. Moving on to application 12.1, listed building consent for the refurbishment of the male and female toilets at Heilfryn Gardens Unit, Heilfryn, Llangoed. Can I bring the officer in first of all? Yes, thank you. This application is being reported because it is the land is owned by the council. It's for listed building consent for the refurbishment of the male and female toilet units at the garden unit. It will bring the toilets up to modern standards, and all the work will be within the building. As you can see from the report, the work won't have an impact on the listed building and can be removed if conditions change in the future. If you agree, we will need to amend condition 2 as it appears in the report to reflect the fact that this is an application for listed building permission rather than planning permission. Thank you for that explanation. I also understand that the local member, Councillor Elin Roberts, wants to speak. Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll be short and concise, you'll be pleased to hear. I'm pleased that this application has come up, and naturally this is a step in a direction. I don't know how many of you have come across this special resource. It's an important resource, and there's a lot of support locally that use is being made of this resource now. And I see this leading to more and better use made of this resource. So I totally support it. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Elin Roberts. So we've heard from the officer and the local member. Do members of the committee have any questions? If not, is anybody willing to make a proposal? Yes, I'm happy to propose. Yes, proposed by Councillor John Griffiths and seconded by Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. Is that correct? Yes, thank you. Any other proposals or an amendment? If not, we'll move on to the vote, which is to permit this application. Councillor Glyn Haynes, in favour or against permitting?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Ken Hughes, in favour. Thank you. Councillor Eric Wyn-Jones, in favour. Thank you. Councillor Richard Owen-Jones, in favour. Thank you. Councillor David Roberts, in favour. And Councillor Ian Williams, in favour. Thank you. So that application has also been approved. So moving on with the agenda to application 12.2. Full application for the erection of a new structure to provide a roof over the existing Farmad Manure store at Fronhaelog, Kemais. Can I bring the officer in? Yes, thank you. The reason for reporting to the committee is that the application site is land owned by the council. The main planning considerations, the purpose of the application is to improve the manure management system on the farm to conform with the requirements of the Water Resources Control of Agricultural Pollution Wales Regulation 2021. The structure is not to accommodate an increase in stock numbers. And having considered the application against relevant policies in the Joint Local Development Plan, it is considered that the proposal is suitable in terms of its location and design, and it isn't considered that its size would have a significant detrimental effect on the appearance of the area or on the amenities of nearby residents. So the recommendation is to approve with the conditions listed in the report. Thank you. Thank you. So the application in front of us has a recommendation of approval. So do members of the committee have any questions or comments, or does anybody want to make a proposal? Yes, I'm happy to propose that we approve the application with the conditions. Thank you, Councillor Ken Hughes. Anybody willing to second? Yes, I will second. Thank you, Councillor Eric Wyn-Jones. So any other proposals or an amendment? If not, once again, we'll move on to the vote. which is to permit. Councillor John Griffith, in favour or against? In favour of permitting. Thank you, Councillor Glyn Haynes.
In favour.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. Approve. Thank you. Councillor Richard Owen-Jones. In favour. Thank you, Councillor David Roberts. In favour. Thank you, and Councillor Ian Williams. In favour. Thank you. So moving on to application 12.3, which is a full application for the erection of 7 business units together with landscaping and associated developments at the former heliport site, Penrose Industrial Estate, Penrose Holyhead. Can I bring the officer in? Thank you. Once again, the reason for reporting to the committee is that the application is submitted on behalf of the local authority. The key issues to consider are whether or not the proposal complies with local and national policies, whether the proposal will have an impact on the designated area of outstanding natural beauty and highway safety. The main planning considerations are the principle of the development, its effect on the development, its effect on the character and appearance of the AONB, effects on nearby amenities and highways considerations. So in terms of the principle of the development, the site is within the development boundary for Holyhead and the policy curve 1. The application site has also been designated as Proposal Act 10 under the provisions of curve 1, which safeguards land for employment and industrial uses. So it is considered that the principle is acceptable under policies of the JLDP. Secondly, in terms of the effects of the development on the character and appearance of the AONB, the site is surrounded by commercial and industrial developments and the wastewater treatment plant. Although the site itself isn't in the AONB, because of the nearness of the AONB to the site, it is a relevant consideration for this application. As noted, the application does include previously developed land on an industrial site, so it's obvious that the principle of development has been established under the designation under C10. So the site is expected to come forward for industrial use. These are relevant and significant considerations which establish the development of the site close to the AONB. The landscape officer has considered the application and considers that it won't have an effect on the AONB or its special characters. In terms of the effect on the amenities of neighbouring properties, the site isn't located in a residential area, and due to its nature and how far it is from residential properties and other land uses around it, it is considered that the proposed developments would not have a detrimental impact on amenities of neighbouring properties. And finally, the effect on highway access is from the highway via an internal road which will serve the units. The local highway authority and the Welsh Government Highways Department have assessed the proposal and are satisfied with the application. So in conclusion, it is considered that the principle of the development aligns with national planning policy together with the joint local development plan. It is considered that the proposal in technical terms is acceptable and will not harm the amenities of the locality nor the nearby AONB. So the recommendation is to permit with conditions. So the recommendation is to permit. Do members of the committee have any questions? If not, does anybody want to make a proposal?
Cynghorydd Glyn Haynes.
Councillor Glyn Haynes. You're on mute, I'm afraid.
Sorry, this development is very much in keeping with the units that surround it, which are all high quality, and it's to be welcomed in Holyhead for the jobs that it may bring. So I propose acceptance of this.
Thank you. So Councillor Glyn Haynes has proposed the recommendation of approval. Is there a seconder? Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes, are you happy to second? Okay, thank you. Is there another proposal or an amendment? If not, we'll go on to the vote, which is to permit in accordance with the recommendation. So Councillor John Griffith, in favour or against? In favour of permitting. Thank you. Councillor Ken Hughes, in favour. Thank you. Councillor Eric Wyn Jones, in favour. Thank you. Councillor Richard Owen Jones, in favour. Thank you. Councillor David Roberts, in favour. And Councillor Ieuan Williams, in favour. Thank you. So that application has also been approved. Thank you. So moving on to the next application, which is 13.1. Application to determine whether prior approval is required for the demolition of garages at Thomas Close, Beaumaris. Can I bring the officer in, please? Yes, thank you. The reason for reporting to the committee is that the application relates to council-owned land. The proposal on the site, this is an application to demolish a row of 23 domestic type semi-dilapidated vehicular garages at the Thomas Close residential estate at Beaumaris. The application form states that the garages are no longer required. A number of the units are empty. The application form also states that the construction of the garages themselves do not lend to redevelopment. They have fragile asbestos roofs and are an eyesore in general. The intention is to leave the site as an open area after demolition. So in terms of main planning considerations, planning permission isn't required for demolishing. It comes under permitted development. If the developer presents the application to the local planning authority to confirm whether the prior approval is required in respect of the method of demolition and any restoration of the site. Under this process, the local planning authority were afforded a 28-day period in respect of the demolition, and it was confirmed within the 28-day period that prior approval from the local planning authority will not be required. So the conclusion is it is permitted development and comes under section 31 of schedule 2 of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 1995. Thank you. Thank you. Do members of the committee have any questions, or does anybody want to make a proposal? Yes, Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes has proposed permitting. Is anybody willing to second? Yes, I'm happy to second. Thank you, Councillor David Roberts. So the recommendation is to permit this application. So we'll move on to the vote. If you're happy. Councillor John Griffiths. In favour or against? In favour, Councillor Glyn Haynes.
In favour.
Ken Hughes.
Councillor Ken Hughes. In favour, thank you. Councillor Eric Wyn Jones. Yes, in favour. Thank you, Councillor Richard Owen Jones. In favour. Thank you, and Councillor Ieuan Williams. In favour. Thank you.
Ymlaen felly gyda'r cais ola.
And then to the last application, number 13.2. Prior approval of proposed demolition of 2 garages at Hampton Way, Llanfaes. Can I bring the officer back in, please? Thank you again. This is the same as the previous applicants. To demolish garages, domestic garages. So it's the same kind of proposal and same planning considerations. It is permitted development and falls under Section 31 of the Town and Country Planning Act. Okay, excellent, thank you. So as you've heard, the application it is for us to permit. Are there any questions, or is anyone happy to give me a proposal? I propose that we permit. Thank you. So Councillor Eric Quinn-Jones has proposed. Is anybody happy to second? Happy to second. Thank you. Councillor Ken Hughes, was that? Am I correct? Yes, correct. There we are. So we do have a proposer and a seconder for allowing. Is there anything else? An amendment? If not, we move to the vote. Councillor John Griffiths, in favour or against permitting? In favour of permitting. Councillor Glyn Haynes.
In favour.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. In favour. Councillor Richard Owen-Jones. In favour. Councillor David Roberts. In favour. Thank you. Councillor Ian Williams. In favour. So that has been approved. And the meeting has finished. So thank you to all of you for joining with us today.